Well, so yeah, my name is Alinda Kokkinou. Thank you for not trying to pronounce my last name. I've actually recently been promoted to associate lector. I just forgot to update my LinkedIn, sorry about that. And I have a passion for bicycles. I'm not originally Dutch, but now I live in the Netherlands, and if you live in the Netherlands, you'll realize how important bicycles are for you. And what I also am is associate lector, digitalization for impactful value chains. And this is a cooperation between Brede University, where I spend about half of my time, and Avans, where I spend the other half of my time. And what both institutions have in common is that we work very closely with business partners, organizations. And one of the things that I've heard a lot, because we work in continuous improvement, they're trying to improve, is, hey, we're struggling with digitalization. And these are all fantastic companies. They're very good at what they do. They even have computers. They even use those computers. They have enterprise resource planning systems, customer relationship management systems. They have robots. One of them has a soldering robot. It solders things by itself. But digitalization is still a bit of a mystery. So together with them, we applied for a subsidy, which we received. And now we're studying, okay, let's look at digitalization at a bigger concept, not as a single solution for a single problem, but how you can put it across the organization. And we call that the Data Analytic Capability. And that was already a bit of a search, because digitalization is the word that we use all the time. And actually, the funniest part is, organizations think digitalization is so passé, they actually come to us and they say, we want digital transformation. And then we sit down with them and we're like, okay, digital transformation, but where's your data? Well, we have some over there in that system, we have some over there in that system, but yeah, the systems don't talk to one another. So then we're like, yeah, but your problem right now is still digitization. You don't have access to all your data in a digital way. So if you want to go all the way to digital transformation, where you create new business models based on technology, we're going to have to take a few steps. And this is why we focus on the very boring concept my marketing colleagues told me, data analytic capability. It's not very sexy, it's not artificial intelligence, but it's still the basis. And data analytic capability is the ability to use data in a timely manner to make decisions that are complex. And most organizations that we work for, all really good companies, don't have access to those kind of insights. And that's why we're working with them on data analytic capability. And well, one thing I like to do is tell stories. And what we noticed is we needed a good metaphor for data analytic capability. And in the land of bicycles, what's better than a metaphor by bicycles? So we're going to take a little break from data analytic capability for especially our guests from abroad to discuss the basics of bicycles in the Netherlands. Anyone know how many bicycles there are in the Netherlands? How many? Very close, very close. 23 million. So then I thought, okay, I'm not going to get in trouble with copyright. I'm going to be very modern, and I'm going to look in my phone if I have any pictures of bicycles. So iPhone has a new feature, AI-driven, and you can search your pictures. So my phone, I typed bicycles. How many pictures of bicycles do you think I had in my phone? Nota bene, I had over 100,000 pictures in total. How many of bicycles? 2,154. Thank you. Were they all mine? No, but close, close. So that leaves the question, how many bicycles do I own? Given that we have 23 million bicycles in the Netherlands, 17 million inhabitants, that's 1.35 bicycle per inhabitant. And I'm a triathlete. Well, wannabe triathlete. How many bicycles? Well, I actually haven't counted. So this is a typical granny bike. This is the most common model of bicycle in the Netherlands. Alhoewel, that's a Dutch word that I learned recently, a granny bike is a misnomer. Grannies in the Netherlands have electric bicycles these days. So if you go to the south of the country, where we do have a few hills, and you're in your nice race bike, and then Granny passes you, check the battery. She has one. I didn't. Took me a while. This bicycle is very sturdy. It's typically Dutch because there's nothing extra. There are no gears. Why would you need gears in a flat country? There are no brakes because that's an extra cable. So you can backpedal. If you're not born in the Netherlands, I tried it for the first year, almost died a couple of times. I invested in a better bike. So this is my commuter bicycle. It took me from Brede station to, from my house to Brede station this morning. This is this morning's picture. It's 11 years old. It still works, and it still hasn't been stolen. That's all the security features. And for those of you that are not in the know, if you put red bags on your bike, it's not going to get stolen. It's too visible, right? It has lights. It can handle the rain. I've never had a flat tire yet. It's exceptionally good. Good value for money, including the brakes and gears. It has 3 gears. I'm also a mom of 2. I have 2 adorable children, and because I'm fashionable, I have what we call a cargo bike, a bakfiets. Super handy. You throw in kids if you have them, also dogs. I tried the mother-in-law, works as well. She's pretty small. And, well, you know, you go for a picnic. Except I was a bit sustainable. I didn't buy the electric version. My kids are big now. They're too heavy. So our cruising speed is 8 kilometers an hour. If we need to be anywhere, we take the car. Like I said, I'm a triathlete. After 10 years of being last, every time my husband convinced me to get a real racing bike, this is the most expensive thing I've bought. Works really well. And because I'm Greek, I don't like putting my bike in the airplane. Last weekend, I used Poseidonas. It's the cheapest racing bike you can possibly get, but it still got me from beginning to finish. I was last again, but let's not go there, okay? So this is a very good collection of bicycles for a Dutch person to have, I think. So, moral of the story, not all bicycles were created equal. Each bicycle has a specific function, right? So my bosses are here. By the way, this is my dream bike. It's a triathlon bike. For those of you that do triathlons, what you need to know is it's a time trial. So you need to have as minimum wind resistance as you can. The disc wheels, also Aero, they're about 2,000 euros a pair. So this bike will set you back about 10,000 euros. So if I were to ask for a pay raise, you'll understand. The trouble is, it's not only about the purpose. It's also about the capabilities of the rider. And, well, you know, I could say I want a 10,000 euro bike, but this is a bit more my style. Like, hey, I'm transitioning now. So this is not the right bicycle for me. It doesn't fit my capabilities. It doesn't fit my budget. It just looks fancy, right? So goes back to the original question. Well, what do bicycles have to do with data analytics? Well, it's a really good metaphor because just like every bike, aka organizational strategy, has its perfect wheel, its perfect data analytic capability. Data analytic capability is different depending on your strategy. So there's one bicycle type, one bicycle wheel type that fits the bicycle. And that works really well with the organizations. Now, a little history. Who knows the history of the wheel? We always say about reinventing the wheel, but until last year, I didn't know that wheels were not invented until 3500 before Christ. To give you some context, humans had already invented harps before they invented the wheels. Yeah, you're like, it's like a round thing. What's wrong with it, right? But it turns out the hardest thing to think of and to imagine was not the wheel itself. It was the hole in the middle, right? Because you need to attach the wheel to the structure. That was the biggest invention. The second biggest invention were the spokes, because until then, the wheel was a mass. It was really heavy, so if you wanted to go somewhere, it was handy, but you weren't going to go there quickly. So the spokes made the wheels much lighter, so they could be used for agriculture and other good things. Then we invented the rubber, so we could absorb shocks, because imagine riding a bicycle on a wooden wheel. That's not really good for the derrière. Okay? So, great inventions. Comes back to our data analytic capability wheel, which was a fantastic metaphor to work with the organizations that we were doing the research with and explain what data analytic capability should be. Just like the wheel of the bicycle helps you go from A to B, data analytic capability helps your organization move, go from what we can do to what we would like to do. That's why the rim is organizational agility. The tire of the bicycle transforms the power of the cyclist, or the lack of power of the cyclist, in motion. That's organizational agility. And then you have 6 spokes that give your wheel structure and strength. And those are knowledge and skills of employees. Jaap mentioned it also in his keynote. You need to train your employees to make decisions in the context of lean, but also to know how to use insights, to do data analytics. So you need knowledge in your organization. And we distinguish between 2 types of knowledge. Technical knowledge, so the people that actually do the data science and the analytics, and the domain knowledge, people that actually know the business. But these 2 sets of people need to be able to talk to one another. And I'm usually in the category, statistics nerd. I still need to be able to have a conversation with a business person and ask them, okay, what is it that you want to know? So you need that knowledge in the organization. You need data analytics. It could be anything from Power BI and dashboards to artificial intelligence. The more the better. Then we've got data. Well, everyone knows we need data, so we're not going to go into that. The IT infrastructure, your ERP system that talks to your CRM system and they speak the same language, handy. What people do underestimate is the processes and the structure. Once you start introducing data analytics in the organization, you're empowering people to make decisions because they have the data available. That means you have to change the processes and the structures for those people to take advantage of the empowerment. And the last one, most important, management, leadership. You want leadership to model the right behavior, to have a vision for digitalization, but to also make room for people to experiment with it. And these are all ingredients. Now what you notice is, what was missing, remember what I said? When we invented the wheel, it was the hub, the middle part of that wheel that was the most important part. That's the same thing in our wheel. It's the why. Simon Sinek, he's really fashionable lately. Why are we digitalizing? Because the why is going to determine what we're going to do in terms of digitalization, right? Now, it's a little bit different than the Wheel of Fortune. In the Wheel of Fortune, for people from my generation and maybe a little bit older and a little bit younger, it was a really cool game on TV, and it had spokes that were good, $7,000, why not? Or 7,000 drachmas if you grew up in Greece, and you could also go bankrupt. So there are good spokes and bad spokes. We don't have a Wheel of Fortune. All of our spokes are equally important. Oh, sorry, this one. Because what we notice is many companies put a lot of effort in their data. Okay, before we do anything, we're going to have the perfect data. So they spent energy, time, resources on getting more data, better data. And then when they finally tried to do something with it, they realized, that was the wrong data. So that's why we don't want to start with first one thing and then the others. Same thing, we also want our employees to be knowledgeable. We're not only going to work with consultants, for example. So any wheel needs to go on the first spin. If you've ever had a new bicycle, that first spin is always the most important one. So what do? Taking the wheel for a spin. And this is what we've been doing with companies. We first sit down and say, okay, you want digitalization, but what do you want with digitalization? And what we always notice is there's 2 things. Is there knowledge about digitalization in the management team? Because if no one knows much about digitalization, they'll say things, we want AI. Okay, what is AI going to do for you? So there needs to be some knowledge of digitalization, and there needs to be some vision, because without knowledge, you can't have the vision of how to link it to the strategic objectives of the organization. Because we want AI needs to match with what do we want for our company for the future. And that translation sometimes takes months, sometimes takes weeks, sometimes takes half an hour, but that's really the core, starting, step 0. It's not even step 1, step 0. Step one is, okay, this is what we want to do. Do we have the talent in the organization? Do we have technical experts? If not, we'll hire them or we're bringing consultants. But do our domain experts, our content people, do they know enough about analytics? Do they possess data analytic thinking? So we don't hire a data scientist and the poor guy or girl sits alone and nobody talks to them, right? So that's the second question. Once we have that in place, based on our objectives, we know what kind of data analytics we need. Based on the data analytics, we know what kind of data we need. Do we have that data, or do we need to spend 6 months trying to find it first? That's kind of important. And if we can't find it easily, what do we need to change about the infrastructure to find that data easily? Once we've done that, we looked at the processes and structures. I was talking to someone recently. They're a consultancy firm. And what they're very good in is bringing scientists into organizations who actually do the data science. And their biggest complaint is that the rest of the organization doesn't match. So the data scientists come with fantastic reports, but because those are not embedded in the decision-making processes of the organization, it's like, oh, nice report, but we didn't have it when we needed it. So you still need to work on those processes. And last, we've had our first spin. It's time to evaluate. There's a little bit of PDCA going on there, and say, okay, did we achieve our objectives? If yes, fantastic. Is the job done? No. If not, what did we learn from it? Were those the right objectives? Did we miss anything? And the most important step is, now that we've done the first spin, there's so much more knowledge in the organization about data analytics. What can we do better next time? So that's a first spin. That's what we're doing right now. But, nice story about bicycles and data analytic capability, but what does it mean for us here as a company? Well, there's a few takeaways. First of all is knowledge of digitalization is extremely important. In Lean, we also call it Lean Automation, Industry 4.0. Many of us are educators. We need to give our students this knowledge. So even if we're not training our students to be data scientists, we need to give them those basics of data analytic thinking as an important part of any curriculum. Whether they're nurses, whether they're industrial engineers, hospitality managers, we need to give them the basics of data analytic thinking so they can have good professional conversations with the data analysts, and the whole organization benefits from it. The other thing we found out is leadership skills. Even a graduate of a bachelor program is still sometimes more of an expert on technology than the people that have been working at a company for 20 years. They need to feel the autonomy, to be able to take the space to communicate. And that requires something in terms of leadership skills, entrepreneurship, and related concepts. The last one is, before this, we did a lot of research on the success factors of Lean. And many success factors of digitalization match those of Lean. And that's actually my talk this afternoon, so you're very much invited to come to that too. So what we noticed is organizations that already had a Lean infrastructure, problem-solving teams, Hoshinkanri policy deployment, they were in better shape implementing digitalization because they already had more of a change management approach. Structures were in place for decisions about digitalization to be made. So what are we up to now? Well, we've definitely helped the history of the wheel a few steps forward. And what we're doing right now is working with companies, doing action research, and trying to implement some of the tools that are part of that wheel. And part of what we're doing is we're taking tools from Lean and adapting them to that new context of digitalization. So for instance, that's what I'll mention this afternoon in my presentation, Hoshinkanri policy deployment is all about aligning what you're doing to your vision. That includes digitalization. So, I think that was the question that I was supposed to answer. So what do bicycles and data analytic capability have in common? They help you get from A to B. And if you want to read a bit further, we have a few papers. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And if you just want to bicycle together or work together. It's also a good way to find me.